What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Daily Groomer. Here we are covering grooming professionals. Something I like to say is tails, tails, and tangles. That's two different spellings of tails there for those of you that missed it, that we're covering on this Daily Groomer podcast. Today, we are joined by somebody special, somebody out on the East Coast, for all you East Coasters. She has been grooming since 2010, holding multiple certifications in stuff like behavior, skin, and coat. She is also a Hanvey mobile grooming educator, and she shares that name in more than one title. With me today is Ashley Hanvey. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Cool. So hopefully I got that intro right. I'm looking
Excellent.
at your background right now. I'm seeing a lot of 3 and 4 letter titles behind your name that I do not recognize any of.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. Um, Probably the two most important to me are the Master Pet Esthetician and Master Groomer Behavior Specialist through the Whole Pet Grooming Academy.
Okay. And so talk a little bit about those as if I know nothing about them. Just kind of asking for a friend. Of course, I know what those are.
The Master Pet Esthetician course is a comprehensive course. Skin and coat is getting really big right now. We are groomers and we deal with the skin. The skin is the largest organ on the body, and we need to know how to properly maintain that organ. And so we don't just deal with hair, we also deal with skin. And in order to get the most optimal hair, you need to take care of the skin. So that's probably one of the hardest courses that I have done. Michelle Knowles is who teaches that class. And she even made me write reports, like
No.
full on reports, which I had never done before. So yeah, it was intense. It was very intense, but it was excellent. And you don't have to have skin and coat issues to benefit from a class like that. It can help you even just maintain your everyday clients. The Master Groomer Behavior Specialist was taught by Christy Newmeyer Smith. I'm sure you know her already. And we are trying to bring training and behavior to the grooming world so that we are able to modernize how we handle our dogs on our table, so that, we have a better relationship with them,
And
which
does
is
that
really
have to
important.
do with why you are wearing the Y'all Need Science shirt on right now?
It's definitely part of it. I'm really big on backed by science education, and behavior work and both skin and coat work is definitely backed by science, and we definitely need to be evolving as an industry for sure.
Okay. I love that. And so before we dive it seems like we're already diving deep into the deep end here with all these certifications that, I know nothing about. Let's take a step back. I see that you're the owner of that Scrumptious Pooch. But even, I guess, give us some insight real quick into what that is, so we have some context on where you're coming from.
So while I spent the majority of my career working in salons, I have been mobile for a few years. And while I thought I would have hated it, it's actually probably the happiest I've ever been while being a groomer. Um, I'm able to really connect with my clients and their dogs on a level that you just can't get in a salon setting, especially when it comes to the behavior work, because it's just me and the dog, and I'm able to really connect with them. Um, but unfortunately, I'm currently on maternity leave and not getting any sleep, so I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to go back. Because trying to safely groom dogs on maybe 3 to 5 interrupted hours of sleep is just not possible.
That's too funny. That's too funny. You're right. That is definitely not possible. Before, obviously, now you run a mobile grooming van and you worked in the salon before that. But take us back to the beginning. How did you get into dog grooming? How did you kind of go down this rabbit hole? Obviously, you've been grooming for 10 years. So take me back 10 years ago. What were you doing? What interested you about this industry, and how did you get started?
Funny thing about that, my friend in high school, her mother was a dog groomer, and it never occurred to me that that could be something I could do, even though we were big into pets and did a lot of stuff with pets. So a few years later, I ended up with a job at Petco. I was working on the floor, but I had really wanted to be in the grooming salon because I wanted to know what it was all about. Um, A year after working on the floor, I got transferred into grooming, and was a bather for about a year to a year and a half, and then got added to the grooming program, which is, at least back then, was absolutely horrible. Um, and I really hope by now they've improved it, but there's no way to know. So went through that. It was very quick. The team that I worked with at Petco was excellent. We were very tight knit. We had a really good, great time with each other. Our clients loved us. We were one of the most favorite, grooming salons in the area. And then corporate came in and fired everyone. Um, or especially the management, and it completely ruined the dynamic of the entire store, the entire salon, and everything kind of fell apart after that. And so what was left of us ended up jumping ship, and I ended up in a private salon for a while after that.
So before we jump to the private salon, I mean, Ashley, that is not an uncommon story I've
It
heard
is
from
not.
Petco. It seems like Petco, for lack of availability or for lack of access, it's really the only, the majority of groomers get trained at Petco, right?
Mhm.
Or PetSmart, some affiliate there, right? Yet most people end up leaving because of the experience.
Yep.
I know you said the team was really good at Petco, but what about the actual experience made it so like, uncomfortable?
Well, they fired all of our management, and our even the general manager of the entire store was what she had our back. We were like a family. We literally. And she ended up having to retire early due to a spine injury. So we had a really horrible person get transferred in as our general manager, and he literally ruined everything. Our grooming salon manager got fired because another employee had her take home crickets for free. That was it. That was the only reason. She had been given crickets from one of the other floor managers and was just told that it was fine. It was just a couple crickets, and they fired her over that.
Wow. Okay, so it seems like there was this big separation between Petco corporate
Oh,
versus the actual grooming staff.
mm-hmm.
And
Yep,
so,
it sucked.
complete the circle here for me. Most people, again, there's this common theme that people start at Petco and then they leave and they go to private salon or they go start their own house call business, they go do mobile grooming, etc. How, like, what? Take me through that decision process where it's like, okay, enough is enough.
Well, I ended up taking over the grooming manager position for a few weeks, and while I was doing that, our general manager then fired my best bather without informing me when I should have been in on that. I should have known why he was firing one of my employees. And she was the best bather we had. And the reason she got fired is because a former employee came in for a nail trim, and she chose not to go pay for that nail trim. It had nothing to do with my bather. It wasn't her fault. It was the former employee, and so she got fired for that. And so I
Well,
threw in the towel after that. I was so disgusted with how everything had been handled that I put in my 2 weeks and found another salon and was out of there. Couldn't take it anymore.
wow. So it was really you were running to get away. It wasn't like you had an opportunity that was, hey, I'm dying to go join this opportunity. Now in hindsight, probably, but it wasn't, hey, I'm running towards something because I really want to do that. It was really, I just can't take it anymore here. I need to get out of here.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And then when I did find a private salon. It was a boarding and doggy daycare, one of those combo packs. And I was there for almost 6 years.
And how'd you
Before
find
I
that
left.
place?
Uh, Craigslist, actually, from back
You
in the
you
day.
you
Yep.
found your private salon career on Craigslist. That's where it started.
Yeah. Um,
That's
and,
amazing.
and
That's
that
amazing.
that was good for a while. But even that one ended in a very interesting fashion. Um, I thought I had a very good relationship with my salon manager, and I found out near the end that she had actually been trying to sabotage me the entire time I worked there and hated me. So she was constantly like doing things to my schedule, threatening the other groomers that worked with us so that they were always terrified, and I didn't realize that she was talking smack behind my back and just generally trying to be a really nasty person until one of the other groomers, actually slipped on something and said something, and I convinced her to give me proof, of what was going on, and she did. Um, and I got that person fired for creating a toxic
That
work
is
environment.
so it seems like both chapters of the beginning of your grooming career had some sort of toxicity between management and the grooming staff.
Yep.
I mean, give me some insight on, now looking back on that, if how do you make sure that doesn't happen, right?
You
Either
work
from an
for
owner
yourself.
perspective.
After that happened, is when I moved to here, to South Carolina, and that was right at the start of COVID. Um, I didn't realize when I first came out here, but I was so burnt out from those experiences that I almost didn't go back to grooming. I ended up not working for a whole year after that, and wasn't sure I was going to go back. It ruined me. Um, but that's when all of those letters over my name started happening. I really dived into a lot of continuing education, and that brought the fire back. And then I decided to go
And what
mobile.
and what in particular burned you out? If you obviously now you're past it, right? Now looking back on it, do you think it was just the whole collective experience? Do you think it was the toxic work environment? What exactly do you think burned you out?
Well, working in a doggy daycare and boarding facility, you get a lot of large dogs. And while I was not consciously privy to the nastiness that was happening behind my back, I was doing multiple large dogs a day. Like I would come in, I could have three large doodles and a couple golden retrievers on my schedule in one day. Um, and my body was very tired and I was suffering physically. So yeah. And after having done that for so many years, it really catches up with you after a while.
And it seems like you weren't conscious of the aftertail effects that doing 5 large dogs a day would do to you.
Yeah,
And so, for new groomers coming in, is that something that you recommend to, almost keep a shield up that, hey, it might feel okay to do 5 dogs right now, that's good money, etcetera, but it's gonna catch up to you at some point.
most
So how do you
definitely.
recommend avoiding groomer burnout for someone that's new?
For someone that's new, don't do more dogs than you can realistically handle. When I was at that place, I was doing upwards of 6 haircuts a day, plus two bath dogs, plus up to I think up to 4 to 6 nail trims in a 6 hour shift. I do not
I
recommend it.
mean,
I do not
that's
recommend it.
crazy.
You're not able to give the time you need to each individual dog. Um, Everything is rushed, and when you're rushed, that's when accidents happen. Um, and it's not a good mental place to be. I know a lot of groomers end up having to do that many dogs because they're in financial straits, right? Um, I definitely don't recommend doing it even in those circumstances because you will suffer. You're going to get sick a lot. You're going to injure yourself. You could injure dogs. And if you're not feeling it now, you will most definitely feel it later. I still have back issues from all of that, and I have appropriate tools now to help me manage large dogs on my table where I didn't before, and I still have a hard time.
Wow. Okay. That is eye-opening because I do feel like, I mean, obviously, we're humans. Money
Mhm,
drives a lot of the decisions that we do and the
most
decisions that we
definitely.
make, right? And so, as a new groomer, especially someone that maybe is younger and especially someone that's trying to make their mark in the industry and actually make some money, it might not seem like a problem at first to go ahead and start taking, 5 large dogs and doing 4 baths a day and stuff like
Mhm.
that, right? Like filling up your calendar, which can be good, but I think it's only good in moderation. Otherwise,
Yep.
it does, have large scale consequences. Like here you are still having back problems years after leaving the salon.
Mhm, and not only was I doing that, but I was also working house call on the side for my clients back, from my Petco clients that I had. So I was working 6 days a week on top of it. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that.
I know we're laughing now, but we can only do that because we're past the dark days here.
Yes, very,
Um,
very much past those dark days.
so you've done house calls, you've done the Petco, song and dance, you've
Yep.
done private salon, and now you're doing mobile. And what struck me is in your intro, you said something about mobile relating it to those three experiences, that it is the best and the most happiest you've ever been in grooming.
Mhm. It's not for everyone. In order to be mobile, you have to be willing to deal with things that could be potentially annoying. Vehicles break down, problems happen, and you have to be able to go with the flow. Um, and if you're not able to do that, I don't recommend being mobile. But if you can do that, it's definitely the best experience that I've ever had. I get a lot of one-on-one time with my clients and their dogs. Um, Depending on how you charge, you can take as much or as little time with each individual client as you want. I know mobile groomers tend to like to overbook themselves as well, but charge appropriately and don't do it. I maybe do 4 to 6 dogs a day, uh, 3 to 4 days a week.
And I'd love to jump on that. I mean, it seems like you're a mobile grooming educator, and you just said a very important lesson that, again, I think a lot of people overlook is don't overbook yourself. Even though you're a business owner and you want to bring in revenue, do not overbook yourself and charge what your value is. So repeat, you just said you do 5 to 6 dogs a day, 3 to 4 days a week. Is that correct?
4 to 6. It depends. If multi-dog homes, I tend to get up to the 6 dog mark, but generally four stops a day is my preferred. I don't like to do more than 4 stops a day.
And how do you charge? How did you go about setting your prices to make sure that that is worth your time?
So I am very consistent in timing. Even with new dogs, I generally can stay within a very set amount of time. So say if it's like a small dog, usually within an hour, medium dog, hour and a half, large dog, 2 hours, right? So I personally charge hourly. And the way that I came up with what I charge is based on my overhead and what I need to take home. So you definitely have to sit down and actually crunch some numbers and figure out what your expenses are and all that to come up with the number you actually need. And then do it based on consistency. If you're able to be consistent, hourly is the way to go because then can have a dog that for some reason she's taking me longer this time because either she was swimming and she was matted or something else is going on. They get charged more that appointment for that extra time, not less. Um, so it works out really well for me, but it's not for everyone.
No, I love that, and I love this is the model that, I have become almost a fan of as I've talked to mobile groomers, is this cost plus based pricing, where you figure out your costs, and then you add in the cost of your time, which is
Mhm.
essentially what you just said, which is what you need to bring home. It's the cost of your time, and those correlate to the prices that you charge the customer. It's not what your competitors are charging. It's not what the salon down the street's charging. It's not what the Facebook group is telling you to charge. It is your costs plus the value of your time. It
Yep.
sets your pricing. Do you mind telling us? I know you're out in North Carolina, South Carolina. I know you're out in South Carolina. Do you mind telling us kind of that, just for reference, some of those prices around certain dogs or certain hours?
Our mobile and house call I've is between probably about 100 and 120 an hour.
Okay. So it doesn't, I'm going to put in air quotes here. It doesn't matter the type of dog.
Nope.
It's 100 to 120 an hour. And obviously, the type of dog, the smaller the dog, the less time it's going to take.
Mhm.
And the bigger and more matted the dog, the more time it's going to make. But I love that for simplicity, 100 to
It's so simple.
125 an hour. That's amazing. And tell me, I mean, I'm sure your pricing has not always been that simple. How did you arrive on this idea?
So it actually has been that simple for me. I am very thankful that my grooming mother is a mobile veteran, Mary Aquendo. I'm not sure if you've heard of her yet. Um, and I have learned a lot from her over the years. So I didn't have to do what she did when she started mobile was figure everything out. She had already kind of done all that for me. So I've worked with her, read her books. We've been friends for a very long time. And so I kind of knew how to behave going in. Um, And so that makes your life a lot easier, because then when you're set on how you want things to be done going in, you're able to better explain that to clients, and they push you over less. So it's take it or leave it. It's either you pay my hourly price, or I'm sorry, but this isn't the service for you.
Take me through the early days of starting a mobile dog grooming business because I feel like a lot of times it's people's real first business that they own. They're usually the only employee, they're the ones doing the grooming and running the business. And
Hmm.
so for once, for the first time, you're wearing both hats, the business owner hat and the dog groomer hat. Take me through those beginning days of starting a mobile dog grooming business. Maybe, how do you find the van? How do you find your equipment? What do you need to know? What is the most overlooked part, et cetera? Kind of just take me through that first beginning phase.
The one thing that was very frustrating in the beginning, aside from getting the van and all that, was the people that would call me and want me to come to them were outside of the designated service area that I wanted to do. And I chose not to go to them, which was really hard, because I had that set service area that I wanted to be in, and I kept getting calls on the whole outskirts of that service area initially. Um, and I know a lot of new mobile groomers will take everything that calls, so that they're bringing in revenue and everything like that. But the problem with that is you end up having to fire a lot of people as you get busy, dropping areas either, or you weren't feeling very solid in your pricing initially, and so you feel guilty and then don't charge them what you plan to charge them, which was really hard for me going from a salon pricing to mobile pricing. I definitely balked at giving them that big number initially and being like, oh, there's no way they're going to pay that. And I actually only had one person who actually was like, oh my gosh, price wise. But everybody else has always paid it. I've never had anyone question it, um, without good reason, and I don't give them good reason to question that.
Right.
That
So
helps with all the certifications. The more education you have, the easier it is to talk to clients and educate them.
I love that. So it's almost viewing the certifications not only as a tool set for you to be a better groomer, but almost, I mean, that's a value proposition that you can offer clients to justify higher pricing or to justify just pricing in general and the way you do things. I'm curious about one thing you did say. There is such a large temptation right when you start a mobile grooming business to accept everyone that calls, again, because we're humans and people are ringing us to groom their dogs. That's what we do. We groom their dogs, but they're out of this initial set of rules that we set for ourselves right in the beginning. How do you how do you avoid doing that? And why is it important to set those rules and to stick with them, even though it may seem like you're turning away money?
Well, it really depends on the person. If When you go into mobile, expect to not have appropriate revenue for at least the first 6 months of business. So if you were able to properly plan and set money aside, to cover all of your expenses for those first 6 months, I would really stick to your guns and not worry about it. You will get clients. It will happen. It just takes time. Um, but some people aren't able to properly plan, especially with money in this economy. And then those are the people that have no choice. They have to bring in the income, and it's easier to just take those clients, even if it's not convenient. So it really just depends on the person and what works best for them.
Okay, I like that. So it's a function of how well have you budgeted? Do you have the runway to stick to your guns and your rules, knowing that this is a better business for you? It just pays off in the long term, or do you need that money right away where it's not going to be conducive to a great, let's call it healthy lifestyle?
Yep.
Um, you're going to have to change your business as you keep going, et cetera. But there's no one way. It's not one way or the highway, right? It's really conducive on your personal financial decision when you start a mobile grooming business.
Yep.
Super interesting. Tell me, as you got started here, how did you find those first customers?
You know what? They found me. I'm not very good at advertising. I didn't really do a whole lot with it. I drove around in the van, which really felt like I didn't get anything with that with the graphics. But generally, people, your van is your advertisement. Um, when you have really good graphics, it speaks for you. Um, I don't think they got my graphics, which is fine because it ended up working out in the end. I got to be really selective on who I got. Um, but driving around in the van is a really good way. Going to dog parks. One of the first things that I did is establish a relationship with a local veterinarian. We have a lot of shared clients that we both take care of. Um, and just try to do a little bit of networking. If you get a client you really like, have them tell their friends, have them tell their neighborhood, doing that kind of thing. Is basically what I did. But then you also have, you can advertise on Facebook and do stuff like that. I'm just not as great at that part.
I feel like most aren't. That's all kind of a new horizon for a lot of us. Um, with the graphics, what do you mean your graphics weren't fit?
Well, it depends on who sees them. People either think it's a cat, or if they know that what Pomeranians look like, then they get that it's a Pomeranian. But it was the vision, and I really wanted to run with it, and I didn't really care if it worked or not, and so I stuck with it anyway. But somebody who has graphics that really make sense, like, go with the graphics that make sense. For sure.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, you might as well, it's definitely the easy route for you to have graphics that tell people what you do. But here you are. You played the game on hard mode and you're still winning. So, okay, so you took us through how you find customers. I'm curious, as you got into the first, let's call it the first few months of like running this new business all by yourself. Um, what was the hardest part of running a new mobile grooming business?
Wondering if anyone was going to call. Because
Oh gosh.
especially the first few months, I would get a couple appointments here and then nothing, and a couple appointments there and then nothing. And I do remember, crying to my husband at one point that, maybe they're just not interested or whatever, and, worrying that, yeah, I've been turning away the people that were outside of my service area, and, getting second thoughts, about really sticking to my guns about it. And it took a good 6 months before I really started filling up the schedule and everything like that, but it was all in my service area, and it was all people willing to pay what I needed to survive as a business. But man, was it nerve-wracking and very hard.
I bet. I bet. Talk me through some of the things that made it easier. Obviously, you had your husband by your side. Did you, I know you said you read some books, so maybe some of those books, did you start using like a management, tool or software? Did you start, I guess, tell me some of these tools that you started learning to make life a little bit easier as a mobile grooming owner.
Right off the bat, I was using Mogo for scheduling. It made it really easy to set up like an intake page and everything like that. To get them in. All of my policies and procedures are on there, right there for them to take care of. And it just really made it easy to just be able to put it together a legitimate schedule. And they help with routing and stuff like that too. The reminder messages are a big thing. Um, I have pretty severe ADHD that is unmedicated, and remembering to send out reminder texts manually was really rough. I would often do it late or not get around to it. And so setting up automatic reminders was very important.
So, so it seems like software was a big key in automating a lot of the things that you would need to remember.
Yeah. And not everybody's the same, but a lot of people with ADHD need automation, in order to, streamline some of the things that we may forget without even wanting to forget them.
And as a solo business owner, you didn't have, tons of employees and stuff like that. A software probably helped you run your business more effectively.
Most definitely.
Got it. Very interesting, very interesting. Tell me about some of the books that you read that help you learn about the business side of owning a grooming business.
Definitely one of them by Mary Aquendo. I think it's the Mobile Grooming Bible. Real quick.
Yeah, while you look that up, I think I interviewed, Jody Murphy,
Yep. Yep. Her
and
book is excellent as well.
she has an excellent book that she was talking about as well. It's funny to me too, Ashley, while you keep looking that up, the differences that come, like the minute differences that come with owning a mobile grooming business versus owning a grooming salon. They might seem like they're just little differences on the surface, but once you get into things, I mean, it's a completely different world.
It's a whole different ball game. And yeah, the book is called The Mobile Groomers Bible. And it's by Mary Aquendo and Beth Cristiano.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, so you've given us some books, given us some tools that we could use. Talk to me about, do you have any like funny, random, weird stories that has happened while you've been mobile grooming? Is it, funny clients that you've got to know, or some funny accidents that have happened? Tell me something that's some stories from the van.
Thankfully, nothing too crazy. Which, and I know that's not the case for everyone. I've thankfully never had anyone show up to the door in their underwear. I do know that has happened to people. Um, my clients tend to be really chill. They like to make me cookies and give me gifts and have their children make things for me. Like I have some Christmas ornaments last year from one of my clients' kids. Um, and just stuff like that. Depending on how you want to run your business, determines the type of relationship you have with your clients. And I tend to like to be a little bit on a more personal level with my clients. Because I like to keep them really tight knit. I only do 4 week schedules. You only get 2 or 4 weeks. You get nothing else. So I'm seeing the same dogs every single month on rotation. Um,
Why do you do that?
for my own sanity, it's mostly for the health of the dog. Dogs, their skin goes through its regeneration cycle every 21 days. So it makes sense to be grooming them on about that frequency. Um, they're going to stay in way better shape. They're going to look better pretty much all the time, instead of getting to that point where they get really scruffy and gross looking and then all that. But it's also for ease of making my schedule. Having ADHD, it makes it really hard to deal with 6, 8, 12 weeks. So just once I fill up the month, then I close my books. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I know exactly what to expect every single week and every day. And it's peace of mind knowing exactly what I'm doing.
Got it. So it's one of those rules that you set in place because it's your business.
Yep.
You can do what you want. Your books are full now, and it's because you stuck to your guns, and this is what you want to do. I'm curious. I'm sure you get new client requests or new dogs that come in, new owners more specifically, that don't really know about the skin and the coat, the 21-day rejuvenation cycle, etc. You tell me it's 250 for my golden doodle, 250, dollars for my golden doodle, and that you need to see my golden doodle once a month. And I go, no, 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 no. I'm gonna bring him in. That's too often. Why do you need to see my golden doodle once a month? How do you like approach that client conversation? Because I love that you have these very strict. I only do 2 or 4 weeks. You're probably not gonna want two, so I'll see you every 4 weeks. I'm sure you get some pushback. What do people say to that?
I really didn't get as much as I expected. At this point, I've only got 1 or 2 doodles left on my schedule. Um, I don't do a lot of them because they are expensive. So, the people balk at the pricing, and that's fine. I don't need to do your doodle. The my biggest doodle that I have, she's a sheepadoodle, and I was doing her biweekly for a while. But of course, costs got prohibitive, to the owners, and that's fine. But you know what they did? They stepped up more at home. They brush her, they bathe her, they take care of her, they do their best to give her to me in as best condition as they can, and they actually try. Um, I actually haven't had a doodle owner here that I've actually had issue with. I've gotten very lucky. Um, I did more than I can count or remember back in my old job. And yeah, you dealt with a lot of it. The crazy clients that don't understand. And on top of that, when you work in boarding and daycare, they tend to go swimming too. So the dogs would come in and their trunk would be completely fine and mat free, but then from like their legs down would be a solid mat from them playing in the pools every single day of the week. And how do you make that look pretty, right?
That's too
Um,
good. That's too good.
So I
Um,
basically just explained to them, I obviously go into skin and coat care, but I'm like, it also depends on what type of haircut you want to be able to maintain. If you want them to be fluffier, the more often they need to be done. End of story. Also depends on I talk about their lifestyle. What do they have time for? And I just try to make it very realistic for them. Um, because you need to come at it that way. Yeah, they may have some vision in their head of what they want their dog to look like, but they have to admit to themselves what they actually have time for at home. Do they go hiking all the time? Are they swimming all the time? Are they always on vacation? Or are they homebodies? Are they couch potatoes? Do they have all the time in the world to brush multiple inches on their dog every single day? When you really bring reality to it, which I know is hard for a lot of doodle owners in some cases, um, it kind of you got to bring the perspective to something that they understand, and that has always worked for me.
I love that. That's a good last piece of advice to end on here. Ashley, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm sure everyone learned a lot. I know I did. Um, Tell us about how people can find you. I know you've got your QR code on the screen. For those of you guys listening to the podcast, I'll make sure I put something in the show notes so that you guys can, you know, find her. But Ashley, maybe do you have any social channels that you're active on? Um,
I'm a little inactive right now just because the baby takes up all of my time, but I'm on Instagram, just that scrumptious pooch. I'm also on Facebook, and you can email me as well, and you can put my email in the show notes.
Perfect. Well, Ashley, thanks again. Best of luck with the little munchkin running around. Uh,
Working on it.
we hope to have you back. Yeah. Yeah. Good luck with everything. We hope to have you back on again soon.
Would love it.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Ashley. And that is the podcast, everybody.